is there a step like grieving in that? Because I feel like I haven't given myself permission to go there. And if I don't grieve who I was, I won't accept who I am.
All right, well, man, there's like 5 things I'd like to say.
Okay.
All right, so first of all, grieving is very important, but we're not gonna go there first. You're not grieving because you're still dealing with shame. Okay, so what's the shame thing? Shame is a painful, self-conscious emotion centered on a negative self-evaluation, making one feel flawed, unworthy, and exposed, often leading to feelings of disgrace, inadequacy, or a desire to hide, okay? Differing from guilt, which focuses on a specific action, but focusing on self as bad. Now, there is nothing wrong with being ashamed of something that you actually did caused. You understand what I'm saying? Like you actually are to blame, all right? Problem is, most of you come to me with shame issues for things that were outside of your control, like you being in that chair, okay? Because something happened to you that caused all that. You did nothing to cause that. Now, that being said, you have to fix the shame problem first. And the shame problem is fixed easily enough by recognizing you did nothing to cause this. So shame is the wrong emotional response. Now, grief may be a response that's appropriate because you are grieving that you're not functioning like you used to. By the way, I don't want you to stop thinking that that life is completely gone. Who knows what kind of recovery you still might have. It's just gone right now.
Right.
Okay, and you can grieve that you can't function like you used to at the moment.
Right.
So grieving is vital, but you can't get there if you're still feeling shame, because after all, then why would you grieve something that's your fault and you're taking the blame and you're all picking on you and you're a bad person and you're embarrassed and you're hiding and ashamed that why would you do all that? You can't grieve at that point, because grieving would mean that you're just feeling the sorrow and pain of this when you're so far right now. Instead, you feel guilty and you feel to blame and you feel I'm a bad person. You feel embarrassed that people are gonna see you in this condition. We don't see you in a way that you should be embarrassed. We see you and we appreciate you. We also feel empathy and sympathy for your being in that condition, okay? And the struggle, because you know what? We have a different feeling, and this is appropriate, okay, for people that are born into a situation than someone who is struggling with, this is not how they used to be. Because we know they're struggling with it different. Because I've talked to, well, I shouldn't say I've talked to necessarily, but I've heard enough motivational, uplifting teachings from people who are quadriplegic, this plegic, or that plegic, whatever, and they were like, I've always been this way.
Right.
So this for me is normal.
Right.
Okay? Where for you, this is not you. You've not always been stuck in that chair.
Right.
Okay? This is a recent thing.
Right.
So we have a different, okay, I'm not saying we don't have empathy and sympathy for the others, but we have a different one for you. Okay? Different because you were not born this way.
Right.
So we understand you struggle with this differently. Okay?
It's how do you switch I've been reading books and I've been talking things out, and I realized there's I need some steps because I'm still holding myself accountable to who I used to be. And I'm like,
Okay, again, we have to live in reality. So part of the reality is first you have to deal with, I am not to blame for this. Yes, you made some decisions that maybe were contributory, but they were things you could not have known, certainly didn't expect, okay? And so that having happened, you have to release yourself from that. Let go of all that blame, guilt, shame, everything else that's connected with it. Release it first. Then you can do what's called the grieving process, okay? Which is the grieving loss we can do that with a loss of a person, loss of a lifestyle, loss of functionality of certain things that you can't do anymore. There's things to grieve.
Right.
And there's a process emotionally that we go through called the grieving process, okay? And you can just Google that, and it's like 10 steps that not necessarily in order that we tend to go through in the grieving process. One of them, by the way, is where the shame's coming from, called blame. Okay, that is one of the steps actually in the grieving process, where we start feeling guilty and blame ourselves for that person not being around or that thing that we no longer can do or whatever it is, okay? Right. And you have to allow yourself to go through the process. It's very healthy. What's not healthy is getting stuck in one of the steps for a long time. Okay, you need to make sure that you are going through the steps, not like in 5 days, but, if you're spending 7 or 8 months in one step, you're probably stuck. And that's where you need to get a counselor to help you get out or unstuck.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I haven't actually grieved. I realized I hadn't actually grieved. And I've been going to doctors expecting this just to go away, even though I've been challenging myself. And I put myself, I give myself challenges every day. Watching you is giving me motivation to never do what I can do. Don't give yourself an excuse. Do everything you can do.
Right.
And I guess I'm just thinking, I need to just accept myself where I'm at. Like,
right.
Stop holding myself to who I used to be.
Stop expecting yourself to be able to do what you used to do. But
Yes.
here's the thing, though. Grieving, give me a second here. Grieving isn't always necessary. Accepting, if you can accept your new current condition, doesn't mean you have to grieve the old, okay? When I was really sick, a couple of back years, whatever it was, and I might not have been, my lungs had shut down, I might not have been able to move around all that much, that might have been my condition from then on, okay? If my lungs hadn't gotten healed up and everything. I accepted that. I didn't grieve what I couldn't do anymore. I just embraced doing what I could under the new condition. I'm not saying that's easy to do,
Right.
but I'm just saying is if you can accept this is you now, you don't need to grieve, okay? What you need to is live in this new condition. Thrive the best you can with the optimism that it could get better, which is what I did. I was hopeful that it would get better. I wasn't all that concerned about it. I was gonna make it work one way or the other, the best I could make it work, period, right?
Right.
And I didn't give it a whole lot of emotional stuff. I didn't think about how it happened. I didn't think if I could, I didn't get all wrapped in the woulda, coulda, shoulda, how, whatever, right? I just was like, this is where I am,
Right.
okay? I need oxygen on my nose to breathe. I might need an oxygen mask sometimes to breathe. I can barely move. I couldn't go up and down a staircase. I couldn't walk at all. I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
My voice sounded like this. It sounded like a whisper. I couldn't really talk. But I wasn't upset, okay? And the only reason is because I simply accepted that I now needed to learn how to be whatever this is.
Right.
And this is something Paul says, I guess, in a way, when he says, I've learned that whatever condition I'm in, to be at peace.
We're content.
Okay? Okay, so don't focus on needing to grieve. It may be something that you might need to do. But don't decide what you need to do. If you need to do it, you'll just let yourself go
Just
through
let
it.
myself
What you need to do is accept this new condition as your current condition. Not your permanent one, but your current one. And if it's permanent, then that's okay too. You'll figure that out. Just like I decided when I was not able to really move around or anything, I accepted that if that was gonna be permanent, that was okay too. It wasn't what I wanted, but I was gonna figure it out and do the best I can in that new condition. But accepting is the important part, okay? And stop feeling guilt, shame, and all this other blame for what the condition you're in, okay?
I didn't know if the grieving would help me accept. I didn't know if it would be like, the scripture you always tell about weep, mourn, and, kind of move on.
There is a potentially, because one of the steps of the grieving is blame and getting through that and accepting, a lot of times somebody dies, okay? You have somebody that you're in love with, and you're a family member, whatever, and they have a heart attack or something. Whatever happens, they have cancer, and you miss them, and you grieve, and you think, could we have done anything? Could we, any of that stuff had happened? What could I have done? Is there? And you know what? There's no answers for that.
Okay.
Okay. My mother-in-law had a massive stroke. She was laying on the couch. Everybody thought she was just asleep. Nobody really thought to check on her. Every one of them started thinking, well, if you had just checked on her, if you had just done, no, she had a massive life ending, even though she didn't die, but everything basically shut down. She was basically brain dead and coma and whatever after that, because she had this massive hemorrhage that nothing that they would have done would have changed that.
Right.
And nothing about how fast they could have gotten her to the hospital would change. So the doctors told them all that, and you have to accept that there's nothing that you could have done at this point to do anything. That part is where you have to get to that place where you can accept. The grieving process may be a part of that.
Okay.
But I don't think you can grieving process till you let go of the shame.